Hana's scream tore through the darkness at 3 in the morning. Her hands flew to her head, fingers tangling in uneven clumps where long, thick coils had cascaded down her back just hours before. The bathroom mirror reflected a nightmare. Jagged chunks. Exposed scalp in patches. Years of careful growth destroyed in a single night while she slept, trusting the walls that were supposed to protect her. Her stepmother Linda stood in the doorway, scissors still gleaming in her right hand. No remorse flickered across that sharp, angular face. Just cold satisfaction. What did you do? Hana's voice cracked, disbelief wrestling with the evidence scattered across her bathroom floor. Dark strands everywhere, like the remnants of something sacred that had been desecrated. What did you do to me? I did what needed to be done. Linda's tone was flat, almost bored. Tomorrow is Vanessa's day. Her wedding. Her moment. And you. She gestured at Hana with the scissors. Casual and cruel, you were going to ruin it just by existing. Men can't help themselves around you, and I won't have my daughter's wedding photos ruined by guests staring at the help. The help. That's what Hana had been reduced to in her own father's house. The help. The burden. The pretty little problem that needed to be managed. Dad. Hana pushed past Linda, stumbling down the hallway in her sleep shirt, one hand still pressed against her butchered hair. Dad, please, you have to see what she did.
I can't take it
Marcus
anymore.
Collins sat
She's
at the
so
kitchen
cruel to me,
table
and you
nursing
just
a glass
ignore
of
it.
whiskey, his eyes deliberately avoiding his daughter's as she burst into the room. The man who had once called her his little star now couldn't even meet her gaze. Dad, look at me. Hana's voice rose to a pitch she didn't recognize. Desperation clawed at her throat. She cut my hair while I was sleeping. She came into my room with scissors and it'll grow back. His words landed like stones. Flat. Final. He took another sip of whiskey. Linda said you were being difficult about the wedding. Maybe this will teach you that there are consequences for making things harder than they need to be. Hana felt the ground shift beneath her feet. The father she remembered, the one from before her mother died, before Linda and Vanessa invaded their lives, that man would have raged. Would have protected her. This stranger wearing her father's face just sat there, choosing his new wife over his own daughter's dignity. I wasn't being difficult. The words came out smaller now, defeated. I just asked if I could sit with Cousin Marie during the ceremony instead of in the front row where Vanessa wanted me. She said I'd be a distraction. That's all I said. And you were right. Vanessa appeared from the shadows of the living room, her silk robe flowing behind her like she was already the bride. Even at 3 in the morning, her makeup was perfect, her blonde hair professionally curled. You're a distraction, Hana. You always have been. Walking around here with your pretty face and your exotic looks, making me seem plain in comparison. Exotic. That word again. The one that reduced Hana's existence to a curiosity rather than a person. Her mother had been African American, her father white, and somehow that made her something to be gawked at rather than simply seen. Tomorrow is my wedding to the Huang family. Vanessa moved closer, examining Hana's destroyed hair with a satisfied smile. Do you have any idea what that means? The Huangs are Korean royalty in business circles. Photographers from 3 countries will be there. And I will not have anyone remembering anything except how beautiful I looked walking down that aisle. Then don't make me come. Hana's voice was barely a whisper now. Please, just let me stay home. Oh no. Linda crossed her arms, those scissors still dangling from one hand. You'll attend. You'll sit exactly where we tell you to sit. And you'll smile for every camera. Because if you don't, if you dare embarrass this family by hiding away, your father, and I have already discussed sending you to live with his brother in Montana. You remember Uncle Ray, don't you? The one with the ranch 50 miles from the nearest town. The threat hung in the air, sharp and real. Uncle Ray's ranch was code for exile. For disappearing. For becoming even more invisible than she already felt. Hana looked at her father one more time, silently begging him to intervene, to remember the man he used to be. But Marcus just stared into his whiskey glass like it held answers he was too weak to speak aloud. Fine. The word tasted like ash. I'll be there. Good girl. Linda smiled, victorious. Now go back to bed. We have a big day tomorrow, and I need you looking as presentable as possible given the circumstances. Wear that brown dress, the one that makes you blend in. And for God's sake, try to do something with that hair. Hana retreated to her room, locked the door, and slid down against it. Her hands shook as she pulled out her phone and stared at the screen. No one to call. Her mother's family had been pushed out of her life years ago, Linda making sure every connection to her mother's memory was severed. Friends from high school had drifted away when Hana couldn't afford to keep up with their social lives. She was alone in a house full of people who saw her as nothing more than an obstacle to their perfect family portrait. She looked at her reflection in her phone's dark screen. Even in shadow, she could see the destruction. Her hair had been her armor, the one thing she'd maintained from her mother's legacy. Her mother used to braid it on Sunday mornings, teaching her that caring for her hair was an act of self-love, a connection to ancestors who had survived worse than cruel stepmothers. Now even that was gone. If you're feeling the weight of Hana's pain right now, drop a comment below sharing a time you had to find strength in your darkest moment. And make sure you're subscribed because this story is about to take a turn no one sees coming. The morning of the wedding arrived with cruel sunshine. Hana stared at herself in the mirror, trying to salvage what remained of her hair. She'd watched 3 YouTube tutorials before accepting that nothing could make this look intentional. The brown dress Linda had chosen hung on her frame like a burlap sack, deliberately unflattering, designed to make her disappear. Downstairs, the house buzzed with activity. Hairstylists and makeup artists fawned over Vanessa, who held court in the living room like a queen preparing for coronation. The wedding planner shouted into her phone in rapid Korean, coordinating last-minute details with the Hwang family's representatives. "Oh, Hana." Vanessa's voice dripped with false sympathy when she spotted her stepsister. "You did try your best, didn't you? Don't worry, we'll keep you in the back during photos. No one will notice." The makeup artist, a kind-eyed woman named Sophie, approached Hana quietly. "Would you like me to help? I could maybe even it out a bit, make it look more styled." Before Hana could respond, Linda appeared. "That won't be necessary. Hana is fine as she is. We need all hands on the bride." Sophie glanced at Hana with pity before returning to Vanessa's side. Pity. That's what Hana had been reduced to. An object of pity in her own father's house. The ceremony was being held at the Grandview Estate, a sprawling venue that cost more than most people's houses. As the family arrived, Hana could see the massive white tent set up on the lawn, crystal chandeliers visible even in daylight. Flowers worth thousands of dollars created archways and centerpieces. This wasn't just a wedding. It was a statement of wealth and power. The Hwang family had money, old money mixed with new empire money. Vanessa's fiancé, Hwang Dae-jung, was the youngest son of a Korean chaebol family that had diversified into everything from shipping to semiconductors. His presence in their small city had been the talk of society pages for months. How had plain, unremarkable Vanessa Collins landed such a prize? The answer, Hana had learned from overheard conversations, was strategic. The Hwang family wanted an American connection for political purposes. Vanessa wanted status and wealth. It was a transaction dressed up as a love story. Hana was ushered to her assigned seat in the 3rd row, despite being immediate family. Linda had made sure of that. Around her, guests in designer clothes whispered and smiled, showing off jewelry that cost more than Hana's entire college fund would have been if her father hadn't drained it to fund this circus. "Is that the daughter?" someone whispered behind her. "Stepdaughter, I think. Look at her hair, what happened? Probably tried to do it herself. Bless her heart. Bless her heart." The Southern way of calling someone pitifully stupid. Hana kept her eyes forward, refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing her cry. She'd learned that trick years ago. If you don't react, eventually they get bored and move on to easier prey. The ceremony began with orchestral music that probably cost more than a car. Vanessa appeared at the end of the aisle in a dress that looked like it had been spun from clouds and diamonds. She was beautiful, Hana had to admit. All that money and professional help could make anyone beautiful for a day. Dae-jung stood at the altar looking uncomfortable in his tuxedo, his face carefully neutral. This was duty for him, Hana realized. He didn't love Vanessa. He probably didn't even particularly like her. But duty and family obligation were more important than something as frivolous as love. The officiant droned on about commitment and partnership and eternal devotion. Hana tuned it out, counting the flowers in the nearest arrangement to distract herself from the whispers she could still hear behind her. Then everything stopped. A commotion at the entrance made heads turn. The music faltered. Even Vanessa turned around, annoyance flashing across her face at having her moment interrupted. A man walked in, late and unapologetic about it. He moved like someone who had never been told no in his entire life. Tall, dressed in a suit that probably cost more than the entire wedding, he had the kind of face that cameras loved. Sharp jawline, dark eyes that missed nothing, black hair styled with calculated carelessness. This wasn't just wealth walking into the room. This was power. Cousin. Daejong's voice held surprise and something that might have been nervousness. You made it. Did you think I'd miss this? The man's voice carried across the tent, smooth and cold. He spoke English with barely a trace of accent, the kind that came from elite international schools and Ivy League universities. Though I see I'm unfashionably late. Please continue. Don't let me interrupt. But everyone was already interrupted. Whispers erupted like wildfire. That's Kang Min-Jae. The Kang Min-Jae? I thought he never left Seoul. He's more powerful than the entire Hwang family. What's he doing here? Investment genius. Turned millions into billions before he was 30. Kang Min-Jae. Even Hana had heard that name. He was a legend in business circles, notorious for hostile takeovers and ruthless negotiations. They called him the Ice King of Korean business, a man who had never been photographed smiling, who reportedly fired executives for showing emotion in board meetings. He took a seat in the front row, crossing his legs with casual arrogance. The ceremony resumed, but the energy had shifted. Now everyone was aware of him, tracking his movements, waiting to see what the infamous Kang Min-Jae would do next. Hana tried to focus on the ceremony, but her eyes kept drifting to him. There was something magnetic about his presence, the way he commanded attention without trying. When the officiant pronounced Daejong and Vanessa husband and wife, Min-Jae's expression didn't change. He clapped politely with everyone else, but his eyes scanned the crowd like a predator assessing prey. The reception was held in the estate's grand ballroom, a space that could have hosted a presidential inauguration. Hana found herself relegated to a table in the back with distant cousins who didn't know her and didn't particularly care to. She picked at overpriced food that tasted like cardboard, watching the celebration unfold from her exile. Vanessa glowed at the head table, accepting congratulations and gifts with practiced grace. Linda worked the room like a political candidate, making sure everyone knew she was the mother of the bride, that this success was somehow her doing. Hana's father stood awkwardly beside her, a prop in Linda's performance. Ladies and gentlemen, the wedding planner's voice boomed over the sound system. The bride has requested that her sister join her on the dance floor for a special moment. Sister, not stepsister. The lie was delivered so smoothly that most people probably believed it. Hana's stomach dropped. This wasn't on the schedule. This was improvisation, which meant it was cruelty disguised as inclusion. A spotlight swung to Hana's table. Hundreds of eyes turned to look at her. Cameras pointed in her direction. There was no escape. She stood on shaking legs and made her way to the dance floor where Vanessa waited, arms outstretched in a mockery of sisterly affection. The photographer positioned them together, and Hana could feel the calculation in Vanessa's embrace. This photo would make her look magnanimous, the beautiful bride who included her less fortunate sister in her special day. Smile, Vanessa hissed in her ear, quiet enough that only Hana could hear. And remember, everyone can see exactly what you are. The charity case we kept out of pity. The camera flashed. Captured forever was Vanessa's radiant smile and Hana's barely concealed pain. But then Vanessa decided one humiliation wasn't enough. She grabbed the microphone from the band leader, her cheeks flushed with champagne and triumph. I want to thank everyone for being here on my special day. Her voice rang out clear and bright. Especially my dear sister Hana, who made such an effort to be here despite her recent fashion emergency. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Polite, uncomfortable laughter that people make when they know something cruel is being disguised as a joke. No, really. Vanessa continued, warming to her performance. Hana tried a new hairstyle and it didn't quite work out. But that's okay. We love her anyway, even when she looks like she lost a fight with a lawnmower. The laughter grew louder. More genuine now. People pointed. Phones came out to capture the moment. Hana stood frozen in the spotlight, every instinct screaming at her to run, but her legs refusing to move. This was it. The final humiliation. The moment Vanessa had orchestrated from the beginning. All the casual cruelty, the deliberate exclusions, the systematic destruction of Hana's self-worth had been building to this public execution. That's enough. The voice cut through the laughter like a blade through silk. Cold. Commanding. Absolute. Kang Min-Jae stood from his seat at the head table. The room fell silent instantly, as if someone had pressed a mute button on reality itself. He walked toward the dance floor with measured steps, each one deliberate, his eyes locked on Vanessa with an intensity that made her smile falter. That's quite enough, he repeated, each word precisely enunciated. He reached the dance floor and turned to face the room. I find public humiliation distasteful, particularly when directed at someone who appears to be the only person in this room with any genuine grace. Vanessa's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Cousin Min-Jae, I was just engaging in cruelty. He cut her off without raising his voice. The deadliest weapons never need to shout. Tell me, does it make you feel more beautiful to diminish someone else? Does your happiness require another person's pain? The silence was deafening. 300 guests held their breath. Cameras stopped clicking. Even the band seemed frozen. Min-Jae turned to Hana. Up close, his eyes were even more intense, dark, and unreadable. He shrugged off his suit jacket in one fluid motion and draped it over her shoulders. The fabric was warm from his body heat and smelled like expensive cologne and something else she couldn't identify. Safety, maybe? Come, he said simply, offering his arm. Not a request. A statement. Hana stared at him, confused, terrified, and desperately grateful all at once. I don't understand. You don't have to. His voice was softer now, meant only for her. Just walk with me. Right now, that's all you need to do. She took his arm because what else was there to do? He guided her toward the exit with that same measured pace, and the crowd parted like he was Moses and they were the Red Sea. No one dared speak. No one dared move. As they passed the head table, Min-Jae stopped just long enough to make eye contact with Daejong. Congratulations on your marriage, cousin. I hope it brings you more happiness than your wife's character suggests it will. Then they were out of the ballroom, into the cool evening air, away from the cameras and whispers and cruel laughter. Hana's legs finally gave out and she stumbled. Min-Jae caught her effortlessly, his grip firm but not painful. Breathe, he commanded. In through your nose, out through your mouth. Again. She obeyed because her brain had stopped offering useful suggestions. In, out, in, out. Slowly, the world stopped spinning. Thank you, she managed finally. You didn't have to. I know. He released her and stepped back, putting professional distance between them. I rarely do things I don't have to do. Which should tell you something about my assessment of that situation. It's going to be worse now. The words tumbled out. When I go home, Linda is going to kill me. And Vanessa will never forgive this. Her wedding is ruined. Her wedding was already ruined. Min-Jae pulled out his phone and tapped something. She ruined it herself by being petty and cruel. I simply made sure everyone knew it. A black car pulled up, sleek and expensive. A driver in a suit stepped out and opened the rear door. Get in, Min-Jae said. What? No, I can't just. You can. And you will. Because if you go back in there right now, you'll spend the rest of the night apologizing for someone else's behavior. And if you go home tonight, you already know what's waiting for you. His eyes fixed on hers, seeing too much. So get in the car. We're going to talk. And then you're going to make a choice about what happens next. Hana looked back at the ballroom, then at the car, then at this stranger who had just blown up her stepsister's wedding on her behalf. Nothing about this made sense. Everything about her situation was already insane. What was one more inexplicable thing? She got in the car. The interior smelled like leather and money. Min-Jae slid in beside her, maintaining that careful distance. The driver closed the door, and they pulled away from the Grandview estate, away from the ruins of Vanessa's perfect day, away from everything Hana had known. "I'm Kang Min-Jae," he said formally, as if they hadn't just created the scandal of the decade together. "I know. Everyone knows who you are. And you are Hana. Hana Collins." She pulled his jacket tighter around her shoulders. "The charity case, apparently. From what I observed, you're the only person in that entire circus who wasn't performing." He studied her with those calculating eyes. "Your stepmother cut your hair, didn't she? While you slept?" Hana's head snapped up. "How did you?" "I'm very good at reading people. It's how I've built my empire. And everything about your situation tonight screamed abuse." He said it so matter-of-factly, like he was discussing a business deal rather than her trauma. "The question is, what are you going to do about it?" "What can I do?" The helplessness in her voice made her hate herself. "I have nowhere to go. No money. No real family anymore." Linda made sure of that. Everyone has options. Some just require more courage than others. Min-Jae tapped his phone again. "I'm going to make you an offer, Hana Collins. And I want you to listen very carefully before you respond." The car wound through the city streets. Hana waited, her heart pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. "I need a wife," Min-Jae said bluntly. "Temporarily. My family has certain expectations regarding succession and inheritance. According to the terms of my grandfather's will, I must be married to claim my full inheritance and voting rights in the company. I had planned to handle this through conventional channels, but conventional channels have proven tedious and complicated. You want to marry me?" Hana couldn't keep the disbelief out of her voice. "You don't even know me." "I don't need to know you. I need someone who won't complicate my life, who understands the arrangement is purely transactional, and who has enough motivation to maintain the fiction convincingly." His expression didn't change. "You need protection, resources, and escape from an abusive situation. I can provide all three. In return, you play the role of my wife for 1 year. After that, we divorce quietly, you receive a settlement large enough to start whatever life you want, and we part ways." This is insane. But even as she said it, Hana felt something shifting inside her. Hope, maybe. Or desperation wearing hope's mask. "It's practical," Min-Jae corrected. "And before you ask, yes, this arrangement will include legal protections for you. A separate apartment if you prefer. Complete financial independence. Access to education or career opportunities. I'm not asking you to be a real wife in any sense except the legal one." "Why me? You could have anyone. Models, socialites, women who actually belong in your world. Because you have something they don't." For the first time, something that might have been respect flickered in his eyes. "You stood in that spotlight while your stepsister humiliated you, and you didn't cry. You didn't collapse. You didn't give her the satisfaction. That takes strength. And I need strength, not beauty. Beauty is common. Resilience is rare." The car stopped in front of a luxury hotel, the kind Hana had only seen in magazines. The doorman opened her door immediately, greeting Min-Jae by name. "I've reserved a suite for you for tonight," Min-Jae said. "No strings. No expectations. Just a safe place to think. Tomorrow morning, we can discuss details if you're interested. If not, I'll arrange transportation wherever you want to go, and we'll forget this conversation ever happened." He handed her a key card and a sleek black credit card. "For anything you need. Food, clothes, whatever." "I can't accept this." "You can. Consider it compensation for the entertainment value of watching your stepsister's face when I walked you out." The ghost of a smile crossed his face, gone so quickly she might have imagined it. "Room 2804. The penthouse level. My assistant will call you at 9 tomorrow morning. If you answer, we'll talk. If you don't, I'll know your decision." He stepped back into the car and was gone before Hana could form another protest. She stood in front of the hotel, wearing a brown dress that was meant to make her invisible, covered in a suit jacket that probably cost more than her car, holding a key card to a penthouse suite and a credit card from a billionaire she'd met 2 hours ago. Behind her was home. Or what passed for home. Linda's rage. Her father's disappointed silence. That tiny room where she'd been violated in her sleep. The slow suffocation of existing as someone's burden. In front of her was insanity. A stranger's offer that sounded like a fairy tale and probably hid 1,000 complications she couldn't even imagine yet. Hana looked up at the hotel, then down at the keycard in her hand. Then she walked through the doors. What would you do in Hana's position? Let us know in the comments. And if you're invested in seeing how this impossible situation plays out, hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed. Trust me, what happens next will shock you. The penthouse suite was larger than the entire first floor of her father's house. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over the city, lights twinkling like fallen stars. The bed could have slept 4 people comfortably. The bathroom had a tub big enough to swim in. Hana stood in the middle of all that luxury and felt completely, utterly lost. Her phone buzzed. 17 missed calls from Linda. 23 texts, each one more threatening than the last. 2 voicemails from her father that she deleted without listening to. Nothing from Vanessa, which somehow felt more ominous than the threats. She turned the phone off and threw it on the couch. The mirror in the bathroom showed her the truth she'd been avoiding. Her hair was a disaster. The brown dress was a disaster. But underneath it all, she was still herself. Still Hana. Still the little girl whose mother used to tell her that she was made of starlight and strength. What would you tell me to do, Mama? She whispered to her reflection. Would you say I'm crazy for even considering this? But she knew the answer. Her mother had been practical above all else. When you're drowning, you don't question the lifeline. You grab it and figure out the complications later. Hana ordered room service even though the prices made her dizzy. Ate food that actually tasted like something. Took a bath that lasted an hour. Wrapped herself in a hotel robe that felt like wearing a cloud. And then she lay in that enormous bed, staring at the ceiling and thought about choices. She could go home. Apologize. Make herself smaller and quieter until Linda's rage burned out. Spend the next year or 2 scraping together enough money to escape on her own terms. Maybe get a job, save up, eventually rent a tiny apartment somewhere far away from the city and everyone who had made her feel worthless. Or she could take the insane offer from a stranger and leap into an unknown that was at least different from the known hell she'd been living in. When the bedside phone rang at exactly 9 the next morning, Hana was already awake. Had been for hours. Miss Collins. A woman's voice, professional and warm. This is Park Ji-won, Mr. Kang's personal assistant. He wanted me to check if you'd given any thought to his proposal. Hana took a deep breath. Felt the weight of the decision pressing down on her like physical force. Yes, she heard herself say. Tell him yes. Excellent. I'll send a car to collect you at 11. We have much to discuss. The call ended. Hana sat on the edge of the bed, wondering if she'd just made the best decision of her life or the worst. 3 hours later, she sat in a conference room of Kong Industries' American headquarters, facing Min-Jae across a table covered in legal documents. This is a non-disclosure agreement, explained the lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia Chin. Everything discussed in this arrangement remains confidential. Violation results in significant financial penalties. This contract outlines the terms of the marriage, Patricia continued, sliding another stack of papers forward. 1-year duration. Living arrangements are flexible but must maintain the appearance of a genuine marriage for public purposes. Mr. Kang will provide housing, a monthly allowance, and full access to security and legal resources. Upon completion of the arrangement, Miss Collins will receive a lump sum of $5 million. Hana choked on the water she'd been drinking. $5 million. That's the standard rate for this type of arrangement in Mr. Kang's circles, Patricia said neutrally. Plus, he'll cover any educational expenses during the marriage and provide career counseling for afterward. I have conditions, Min-Jae said, speaking for the first time since the meeting began. You will learn basic Korean etiquette and business protocol. You'll attend events with me when required and behave appropriately. You will not embarrass me or the company. And you will not fall in love with me. The last condition was delivered with the same flat effect as the others, but something about it stung. That won't be a problem, Hana said coolly. You're not exactly my type. Good. I don't have a type, so we're even. He slid a pen across the table. Any questions before you sign? Just one. Why are you really doing this? The inheritance explanation makes sense, but there's something else. I can feel it. Min-Jae studied her for a long moment. You're more perceptive than I expected. Fine. My grandfather's will has a clause that requires me to be married to access my full voting rights. My cousin Dae-young has been positioning himself to take over the company, using his marriage to expand the family's American connections. If I don't secure my inheritance within the next 3 months, he'll have enough support to push me out. So this is about power. Everything is about power, Ms. Collins. The sooner you learn that, the easier this year will be. He tapped the contract. Now sign or don't. But decide quickly. I have a board meeting in 40 minutes. Hana picked up the pen. Looked at the signature line that would change everything. Thought about her mother. About Linda's scissors. About Vanessa's cruel smile. About spending one more night in that house where she'd never been wanted. She signed. Min-Jae signed opposite her. Patricia notarized everything with practiced efficiency. Just like that, Hana Collins became someone's future wife. We'll marry at City Hall tomorrow, Min-Jae announced, standing. Quiet ceremony. Immediate family only, which in your case means no one unless you have relatives you actually want present. I don't. Perfect. Ji-won will coordinate everything. She'll also take you shopping this afternoon. You'll need appropriate clothing for your new role. He checked his watch. I have to go. Ji-won will answer any questions. He was gone before Hana could respond, leaving her alone with Patricia and a stack of papers that had just sold her life for 1 year. Ji-won appeared minutes later, immaculate in a designer suit, her smile warm but professional. Congratulations, Ms. Collins. I know this must be overwhelming, but I promise we'll make the transition as smooth as possible. Is he always like that? Hana asked. So cold. Mr. Kang is focused. He doesn't waste energy on emotions that don't serve a purpose. Ji-won gathered the contracts into a briefcase. But he's fair. Honor your side of the agreement, and he'll honor his. Now, let's talk about your transformation. The next 6 hours were a whirlwind. Ji-won took Hana to boutiques where a single dress cost more than Hana used to spend on groceries for a month. They visited a high-end salon where a stylist named Marcus looked at her butchered hair and declared it a challenge he was born to meet. We'll do a pixie cut, Marcus announced. Bold, sophisticated, and it'll grow out beautifully over the next year. Trust me, darling. Sometimes destruction is the first step to creation. When he was done, Hana barely recognized herself. The pixie cut was sharp and elegant, highlighting her cheekbones and large eyes in a way her long hair never had. It was fashion-forward, intentional. It looked nothing like the hacked mess Linda had created. You look powerful, Ji-won said approvingly. That's the goal. Mrs. Kang needs to look like she belongs next to Mr. Kang. Mrs. Kang. The name felt foreign in Hana's mouth. They returned to the hotel with boxes and bags, evidence of wealth Hana still couldn't quite process. Ji-won went through everything, explaining what to wear for what occasion, how to navigate business events, the subtle rules of the world Hana was about to enter. One more thing, Ji-won said before leaving. The media will find out about this marriage quickly. Mr. Kang is too high profile to keep it secret for long. When they come asking questions, and they will, refer them to our PR department. Don't speak to reporters. Don't post on social media. Don't engage with speculation. What about my family? What about them? They'll see the news. They'll know I married him right after the wedding. Good. Ji-won's smile had an edge to it. Let them know. Let them wonder. Let them realize you're no longer someone they can push around. That's part of your new power, Ms. Collins. Use it wisely. The City Hall ceremony the next day was exactly as advertised. Quick, quiet, legal. Min-Jae wore another expensive suit. Hana wore a simple cream dress Ji-won had selected. They said the required words. Signed the required papers. And just like that, Hana Collins became Hana Kang. We need to discuss living arrangements, Min-Jae said as they left the courthouse. No kiss. No celebration. Just business. I have a penthouse in the city. You can stay there, and I'll stay at my other property. Or we can share the space with separate bedrooms. Your choice. Separate bedrooms in the same space, Hana decided. If we're trying to convince people this is real, we need to be seen coming and going from the same address. Logical. He nodded approval. Jiwon will have your things moved from your father's house today. I assume there's not much. Just some clothes and my mother's jewelry box. They can throw out the rest. Done. He checked his phone. I have to go to Seoul next week for board meetings. You'll come with me. Jiwon will brief you on protocol. Min-Jae. She used his name for the first time and he paused. Thank you for this. I know it's a transaction, but still. Thank you. Something flickered across his face, too quick to identify. Don't thank me yet. This arrangement comes with costs you haven't discovered. Just honor the contract, and we'll both get what we need. Then he was gone again, leaving Hana standing on the courthouse steps as a married woman to a man she didn't know, embarking on a life she couldn't imagine. Her phone buzzed. She'd turned it back on that morning, curiosity getting the better of her. 57 new messages. She scrolled through them, watching Linda's rage evolve in real time. First, anger that Hana had ruined the wedding. Then, confusion about where she'd gone. Then, threats about what would happen when she came home. Then, the news breaking about Min-Jae leaving with her. Then, the speculation online about who Hana was. And finally, just an hour ago, the announcement from Kong Industries that their CEO had married in a private ceremony. Linda's last message was just 2 words, call me. Hana blocked the number. She blocked her father's number. She blocked Vanessa's number. Then she got into the car Jiwon had sent and went to her new home, leaving behind every chain that had ever held her down. The penthouse was stunning. Modern design, minimalist aesthetic, views that made the city look like a toy model spread beneath them. Min-Jae had already left for the office. A note on the kitchen counter read, your room is the East Suite. Help yourself to anything. I'll be home late. Home. This was home now. Hana explored her new space. The bedroom was larger than her old bedroom and living room combined. The closet had already been filled with the clothes from yesterday's shopping trip. The bathroom had every luxury product imaginable. But it was the small things that got her. Fresh flowers on the nightstand. A selection of books on the shelf. Someone had researched her favorite authors. A framed photo spot, empty, waiting for her to fill it with memories worth keeping. She unpacked the few things that had been retrieved from her father's house. Most of her old clothes looked shabby and wrong here, so she left them in boxes. But her mother's jewelry box got pride of place on the dresser. She opened it carefully, finding the simple pieces her mother had treasured. A pair of pearl earrings. A gold bracelet with a broken clasp. A locket containing a photo of Hana as a baby. I hope I'm doing the right thing, Mama, she whispered. The locket didn't answer, but somehow Hana felt less alone. That first week was an education. Jiwon arrived each morning at 8 to brief Hana on the day's expectations. Etiquette lessons. Language basics. Corporate culture. How to navigate a business dinner. How to handle nosy questions. How to be Mrs. Kang without losing Hannah Collins completely. Min-Jae came home late each night, sometimes not until after midnight. They'd nod to each other in passing. Exchange brief updates. Exist in the same space like polite strangers. But on Friday night, he arrived home at a reasonable hour carrying takeout. I thought we should eat together, he said without preamble. If we're going to convince anyone this marriage is real, we need to be comfortable around each other. Right now, we move around each other like pieces on a board. They ate Thai food at the dining room table, the city lights spreading out beneath them. Jiwon says you're doing well with the lessons, Min-Jae offered. I'm a fast learner when I'm motivated. And you're motivated by? Freedom. Hana met his eyes. This marriage is my ticket out. I'm not going to waste it. Good. He paused. I heard your stepmother tried to visit my office today. Security escorted her out. Hana's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. Linda came to your office? She claimed she was worried about you. That I'd taken advantage of a vulnerable young woman. That the marriage couldn't possibly be legal without her consent since you're. He checked his phone and I quote, clearly emotionally disturbed. She called me emotionally disturbed? She also threatened to go to the media with a story about how I kidnapped you from your sister's wedding. Min-Jae's expression didn't change, but there was something sharp in his voice. I had my legal team send her a cease and desist. If she attempts contact again, we'll pursue a restraining order. She won't stop. Linda doesn't stop. Then she'll learn what happens when someone tries to interfere with something I've claimed as mine. He caught himself. I mean, with our arrangement. The contract protects you legally. She can't touch you now. Claimed as mine. The words hung in the air, heavy with implications neither of them acknowledged. Why do you care? Hana asked quietly. About Linda harassing me, I mean. It's not in the contract that you have to protect me from my family drama. Min-Jae was silent for a long moment, pushing food around his plate. My mother died when I was 12. My father remarried within a year. The new wife had a son from her previous marriage. She spent the next 6 years making sure everyone knew her son was the real heir, that I was just the inconvenient reminder of the first wife. He looked up, and for the first time, Hana saw something human in those cold eyes. Pain, old and deep. I know what it's like to be made to feel like a burden in your own home, he continued. So no, it's not in the contract. But I won't stand by and watch someone do to you what was done to me. Call it a personal policy. Your stepmother's son. Is that? Daejung's father. Yes, my stepbrother, who now thinks he can take my company because he married well and I've been too focused on business to meet my grandfather's marital requirements. Min-Jae smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. Which is why you and I are sitting here having dinner. Because sometimes the best revenge is simply winning. Is that what I am? Your revenge. You're my solution. There's a difference. He stood, clearing plates. We leave for Seoul on Monday. The board meeting is Tuesday. You'll meet my family. They'll be cold, possibly cruel. Can you handle that? I've been handling cold and cruel my entire life. Your family can't possibly be worse than Linda. Don't underestimate Korean corporate families. We've turned coldness into an art form. But there was something almost like respect in his voice. Get some rest this weekend. You'll need it. Monday arrived too quickly. They flew first class, which Hana had never experienced. Everything was different in first class. The seats, the food, the way flight attendants treated you like royalty. Min-Jae worked the entire flight, reviewing documents and making calls in rapid Korean. Hana stared out the window and wondered what she'd gotten herself into. Seoul was overwhelming. The city sprawled in every direction, modern and ancient existing side by side. The Kang family's Seoul compound was in Gangnam, naturally. Old money neighborhood. Their car pulled up to a gate that looked like it belonged to a fortress. Remember, Min-Jae said as they drove through. You're my wife. That gives you status. Don't apologize for existing. Don't let them make you feel small. And whatever happens, don't show fear. They'll use it against you. The house was a traditional Hanok style, but massive, modernized inside with every luxury. Staff bowed as they entered. Min-Jae's grip on Hana's arm was firm, possessive in a way he'd never been before. Grandson. An elderly man appeared, his face weathered, but his eyes sharp. So you finally decided to fulfill your grandfather's wishes. Grandfather. Min-Jae bowed formally. May I present my wife, Hana? Hana bowed, using the greeting Ji-won had taught her. It's an honor to meet you, grandfather. The old man studied her with eyes that saw everything. American. Black. And you married my grandson in secret. This should be entertaining. I married your grandson because we're compatible, Hana said evenly. And because he asked. Did he? The old man laughed, a dry sound like whined through dead leaves. How romantic. Come, child. Let's see if you're as interesting as you appear. The next hour was an interrogation disguised as tea. Grandfather Kang asked about everything. Her family, her education, her intentions. Hana answered honestly about everything except the contract. That secret she'd protect with her life. You're not what I expected, he finally said. You have a spine. Good. My grandson needs someone who won't break under pressure. His world is not kind to weakness. I learned that lesson a long time ago, Hana replied. I see that you did. He turned to Min-Jae. The board meeting tomorrow will be difficult. Daeyoung has convinced several members that you're unfit to lead because you lack family values. Your sudden marriage will make them suspicious. Let them be suspicious. As long as it's legal, it fulfills the requirements. Legal, yes. But will it appear legitimate? Or will it look like exactly what it is, a calculated business move? The old man's eyes moved between them. You barely look at each other. You maintain careful distance. No warmth, no connection. The board will notice. We're private people, Min-Jae said stiffly. You're strangers pretending to be married. There's a difference. Grandfather Kong stood. If you want them to believe this marriage is real, you'll need to be more convincing. Starting tomorrow. After he left, Hana turned to Min-Jae. He knows, doesn't he? He suspects. But suspecting and proving are different things. As long as we're legally married, he can't challenge it. Min-Jae ran a hand through his hair, the first nervous gesture Hana had seen from him. But he's right about tomorrow. We need to be more convincing. Define more convincing. Small touches. Looking at each other like we actually care. The appearance of intimacy without actual intimacy. He met her eyes. Can you do that? Can you? You're the one who flinches every time we're within 3 feet of each other. I don't flinch, he stopped. Fine. Point taken. Tomorrow, we'll need to act like a real couple. Just for the board. After that, we can go back to our arrangement. But as Hana lay in the guest room that night, staring at the ceiling, she wondered if that was even possible. Because somewhere over the past week, something had shifted. She'd started to see glimpses of the person behind the Ice King facade. And those glimpses were more dangerous than any contract violation. The board meeting was held in Kong Industries' Seoul headquarters, a gleaming tower of glass and steel that dominated the skyline. Hana wore a custom suit Ji-won had commissioned, sharp, elegant, powerful. Her pixie cut was styled perfectly. She looked like she belonged. Min-Jae held her hand as they walked in. The touch felt electric, probably because it was the first time he'd initiated physical contact that wasn't strictly necessary. The boardroom was intimidating. 20 executives, all older, all male except for 2 women, all watching with barely concealed skepticism as Hana entered. Gentlemen, Min-Jae began in Korean, then switched to English. As you know, I've recently married. I'd like to introduce my wife, Hana Kong. Hana bowed formally. Several board members nodded back. Others just stared. Dae-young sat 3 seats down, his expression carefully neutral. Congratulations, cousin. How unexpected. And convenient, given grandfather's requirements. Unexpected. Min-Jae's voice held an edge. I've been with Hana for several months. We simply chose to keep our relationship private until we were ready to commit. Unlike some people who turn their marriages into media spectacles. A direct hit. Dae-jung's joy tightened. Several months. An older board member spoke up. Forgive me, but that seems remarkably convenient timing. Are you questioning my integrity? Min-Jae's tone could have frozen water. I'm questioning the appearance of a marriage that emerged from nowhere just as your inheritance deadline approached. Then question openly, Director Kim. Stop dancing around accusations. Min-Jae stood, and Hana felt the temperature in the room drop. Yes, I got married. Yes, the timing benefits me professionally. But that doesn't make my marriage any less valid. Or is this board now in the business of determining which marriages are real enough for your approval? We simply want assurance that. That what? That I'm not gaming the system. Min-Jae laughed, cold and sharp. Look around this table. Half of you are on your 2nd or 3rd wives, marriages that happen to coincide with business mergers or political alliances. Don't pretend corporate marriages are unusual in our world. Hana stood, drawing every eye. She'd prepared for this moment, rehearsed with Ji-won. But now, standing in front of these powerful men who looked at her like an interloper, she forgot every script. I know what you're all thinking, she said quietly. You're wondering who I am and why Min-Jae chose me. You're wondering if this is real or if I'm some kind of business arrangement. The room was silent. I can't make you believe our marriage is based on love, Hana continued. I can't prove emotions. But I can tell you this. I know what it's like to be judged based on appearance rather than substance. I know what it's like to have people assume you're less than simply because of who you are or where you came from. She looked directly at Dae-young. And I know what it's like to have family try to tear you down because they see you as competition instead of kin. So yes, maybe Min-Jae and I bonded over shared experiences. Maybe we understand each other in ways that aren't romantic fairy tales. But that doesn't make what we have any less valid. She sat down, her heart pounding. Had she said too much? Revealed too much? Min-Jae's hand found hers under the table, squeezing once. Approval, maybe. Or warning. Well said, Mrs. Kang. Grandfather Kang's voice came from the doorway. No one had noticed him enter. It seems my grandson chose better than some of you believed. He moved to the head of the table. The question of Min-Jae's marriage is settled. He is legally married, which satisfies the requirements of my will. Unless someone has actual evidence of fraud, this discussion is over. Silence. No one dared challenge the old man directly. Good. Now let's discuss actual business instead of gossiping like old women. Grandfather Kang shot a look at Daejang. And perhaps some of you should focus on making your own marriages work instead of questioning others. The meeting continued, but the damage was done. Or rather, the victory was won. Hana had stood in front of the most powerful men in Korean business and held her ground. And they'd backed down. After, as they left the building, Min-Jae pulled her into an empty conference room. That was impressive, he said. You went off script. I know. I'm sorry if I... Don't apologize. You were perfect. And then he smiled. Actually smiled. It transformed his entire face, made him look younger, almost approachable. You made them uncomfortable, which is my favorite thing to do. We make a good team, Hana Kang. The way he said her new name, with warmth instead of his usual coolness, did something dangerous to Hana's heart. We should celebrate, he continued. There's a restaurant I want to take you to. Not for business. Just because. Just because. 2 words that shouldn't have meant anything but somehow meant everything. They went to a small restaurant tucked away in a quiet neighborhood, the kind of place with no sign and reservations booked months in advance. Min-Jae was greeted by name, led to a private room where they could talk without being overheard. I used to come here with my mother, he said as they sat. Before she died. It was our secret place, away from the family politics and business pressure. You miss her. Not a question. Every day. He poured tea, his movements practiced. She was kind in a family that values ruthlessness. Gentle in a world that sees gentleness as weakness. She didn't belong in our world, but she tried so hard to make it work. For me. For my father. How did she die? Car accident. Or that's what the official report said. His voice went flat. But I've always wondered if it was really an accident. My stepmother stood to gain a lot from her death. And my father remarried so quickly, like he'd been waiting. You think your family killed her? Hana whispered, horrified. I think powerful people do terrible things when it serves their interests. And I think asking too many questions about the past is a good way to end up having an accident yourself. He looked up, and the pain in his eyes was raw. That's the world you married into, Hana. That's the real cost of this arrangement. You're tied to a family that values power over everything, including human life. Then why stay? If you hate them so much, why fight for the company? Because my mother's legacy is buried in that company. Because if I walk away, Dae-young wins and he'll destroy everything she built. Because... He paused. Because sometimes the only way to honor the dead is to make sure their sacrifice wasn't meaningless. They ate in comfortable silence after that, the kind of silence that exists between people who understand each other's pain. Hana realized she'd stopped seeing Min-Jae as the cold billionaire from the wedding. Now he was just a person carrying wounds he'd never let heal, fighting battles no one else could see. Dangerous. This growing understanding between them was dangerous. It violated the unspoken rule of their arrangement. Don't actually care. But Hana was starting to realize that some rules were impossible to follow. They returned to Seoul's penthouse apartment Min-Jae maintained. It was similar to the one in America, but with Korean touches, traditional art mixing with modern design. I have meetings all day tomorrow, Min-Jae said, loosening his tie. But tomorrow night, there's a charity gala. We should go together. Be seen as a couple. More performing? More building the narrative. He paused. Unless you're tired of playing the role. I'm tired of not knowing what's real anymore. The words escaped before Hana could stop them. This arrangement was supposed to be simple, transactional, but nothing about it feels simple anymore. Min-Jae went very still. What are you saying? I'm saying I can feel the lines blurring. And I don't know if that's good or bad or just inevitable when two people spend this much time pretending to be something they're not. It's inevitable, he said quietly. And dangerous. Because in 10 months, this ends. You get your money, your freedom, your new life. I get my company and my inheritance. We both get what we contracted for. And if we want something different by then we'll deal with it when the time comes. He moved closer, close enough that Hana could smell his cologne, see the exact color of his eyes. But for now, let's focus on surviving each day without completely losing ourselves in the role. Is that possible? It has to be. But he didn't sound convinced. The gala the next night was exactly as extravagant as Hana expected. Designer gowns, priceless jewelry, people who treated money like water because they'd never known what it meant to be thirsty. Hana wore a black dress that Ji-won had selected, simple but elegant, with her mother's pearl earrings as her only jewelry. Min-Jae introduced her to what felt like hundreds of people, each more powerful than the last. CEOs, politicians, celebrities. They all looked at Hana with curiosity, some with kindness, others with barely concealed disdain. So you're the one who captured Korea's most elusive bachelor, a woman in diamonds said, her smile sharp. However did you manage it? I didn't manage anything, Hana replied smoothly. We simply found each other when we both needed someone who understood complicated families. How diplomatic. The woman's eyes scanned Hana from head to toe. Though I'm sure the money didn't hurt. Before Hana could respond, Min-Jae appeared at her elbow. Mrs. Park, I see you're as subtle as ever. If you'll excuse us, my wife and I were just about to dance. He led Hana to the dance floor, his hand firm on her waist. Sorry about her, he murmured as they moved to the music. Mrs. Park has been trying to marry me off to her daughter for 5 years. She's taking rejection poorly. I can handle snide comments. I survived Linda, remember. Still, you shouldn't have to. His hand tightened slightly on her waist. You look beautiful tonight, by the way. I don't think I said that earlier. Hana looked up at him, surprised. That's not part of the arrangement. I know. But it's true anyway. His eyes held hers, and something passed between them. Something that wasn't part of any contract. Min-Jae. Don't. He said it softly. Don't overthink it. Let's just have this moment without analyzing what it means. So they danced, surrounded by hundreds of people, and for just that moment, it felt real. The marriage, the connection, the possibility that maybe two broken people had found something unexpected in a fake arrangement. Then Hana saw her, across the ballroom, talking to a group of businessmen. Her face was older, harder than Hana remembered, but unmistakable. Aunt Sarah, her mother's sister. The family member Linda had systematically cut out of Hana's life after her mother died. I need to, Hana pulled away from Min-Jae. I need a minute. She crossed the ballroom on shaking legs, her heart pounding. Sarah turned as Hana approached, and recognition flickered across her face. Hana? Sarah's voice cracked. Oh my God, Hana, is that really you? Hi, Aunt Sarah. Hana's voice was barely a whisper. And then she was being hugged, held tight by arms that smelled like her childhood, like safety, like the family she'd lost. Look at you. Sarah pulled back, tears streaming down her face. Look at how beautiful you've become. Your mama would be so proud. But what are you doing here? How? I'm here with my husband. The word felt strange. Kong Min-Jae. Sarah's eyes went wide. You married Kong Min-Jae? The Kong Min-Jae? Hana, how did that happen? It's complicated. I bet it is. Sarah glanced past Hana to where Min-Jae stood watching. But first, tell me about you. Linda cut me off years ago. Threatened legal action if I tried to contact you. I've been hoping and praying you were okay, but I had no way to know. I'm okay now. I wasn't for a long time. But I am now. They talked for 20 minutes, cramming years of separation into stolen moments at a charity gala. Sarah was in Seoul for business, some consulting work for an American company expanding into Korean markets. She'd been trying to find Hana for years, had even hired a private investigator at one point. I have so much to tell you, Sarah said. About your mama, about the family, about things Linda never wanted you to know. What things? Not here. Sarah glanced around. Can we meet for coffee? Tomorrow? Just the two of us. Hana nodded, and they exchanged numbers, real numbers this time, not ones that would be blocked or threatened. When Hana returned to Min-Jae's side, he studied her face. You're shaking. That was my aunt. My mother's sister. I haven't seen her since I was 13. Do you want to leave? No. But tomorrow, I need to meet her. She has things to tell me about my mother, about my family. Is that okay? You don't need my permission, Hana. You're not actually owned by me, despite what our legal documents say. But his hand found hers and squeezed. Though I'd like to know what she tells you if you're willing to share. Why? Because something about this timing bothers me. Your aunt mysteriously appearing in Seoul just as we're here? At an event neither of you would normally attend? That's not coincidence. You think someone arranged it? I think powerful families have ways of manipulating situations to their advantage. And I think we should be careful about who knows what about our arrangement. The paranoia should have bothered Hana. Instead, it reminded her that Min-Jae survived in a world where even family couldn't be trusted, where love was weakness and every connection was potentially weaponized. But as they left the gala that night, Hana couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. Between her and Min-Jae, between her past and her present. Lines were blurring, walls were cracking, and the neat boundaries of their contract were becoming increasingly meaningless. And that terrified her more than any of Linda's threats ever had. If this story is keeping you on the edge of your seat, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what happens when Hana discovers the truth about her mother. Trust me, it'll change everything. The coffee shop Sarah chose was tucked away in a quiet neighborhood, the kind of place tourists never found. Hana arrived first, nervous energy making her hands shake as she ordered tea she wouldn't drink. Sarah walked in looking every inch the successful businesswoman, designer suit, confidence stride, none of the brokenness Hana remembered from childhood. They hugged again, longer this time, making up for years of stolen connection. Before I tell you everything, Sarah began once they sat, I need you to know that your mother loved you more than life itself. Everything she did, every choice she made, was to protect you. Protect me from what? From the truth about how she died. Sarah's hands wrapped around her coffee cup. Hana, your mother didn't die in a random mugging like your father told you. She was killed because she discovered something that powerful people wanted buried. The words didn't make sense at first. Hana had been told her entire life that her mother was killed during a robbery gone wrong, that she'd been in the wrong place at the wrong time. Random violence in a random world. That's not possible. Dad said. Your father said what he was told to say. Or what he convinced himself to believe, because the truth was too dangerous. Sarah leaned forward. Your mother worked in financial consulting, right? For small businesses, helping them manage their accounts and taxes. Hana nodded. She remembered her mother's little office, the neat files, the careful attention to detail. One of her clients was laundering money for a major corporation. She found the discrepancies, traced them back to their source, and realized she'd stumbled onto something massive. We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars moving through shell companies, bribes to government officials, the kind of corruption that brings down empires. What company? Sarah's eyes held pity. Kang Industries. Your mother discovered that the Kang family was using small business clients as money laundering fronts. She was preparing to go to the authorities when she died. Hit and run, they called it. But there were no witnesses, no security footage, no evidence except a body and a devastated family left behind. The room spun. Hana gripped the table to steady herself. You're telling me that Min-Jae's family killed my mother? I'm telling you that someone in the Kang Empire didn't want her information becoming public. Whether it was Min-Jae personally, his grandfather, his father, I don't know. But the timing was too convenient. She died, the investigation into Kang Industries mysteriously lost momentum, and your father suddenly had money to send you to a private school that year. Money that appeared from nowhere. Dad was paid off? He took money for his wife's murder. I think he was threatened and bribed. Told that if he kept quiet, you'd be taken care of. warned that if he made noise, his daughter might have an accident too. Sarah reached across the table. I tried to intervene. Tried to push the investigation. That's when Linda entered the picture. Your father married her within 8 months, and suddenly I was persona non grata. Restraining orders, legal threats. She made sure anyone from your mother's side of the family couldn't interfere. Why are you telling me this now? Because you married into the family that destroyed your mother. And I needed you to know before you get in too deep, before whatever arrangement you have with Hana and Min-Jae becomes something you can't walk away from. Hana stood abruptly. The coffee shop felt too small, the walls closing in. I need air. Outside, she leaned against the building, breathing hard. Her entire marriage, the contract that was supposed to save her, was built on her mother's grave. Min-Jae, who'd seemed like her rescuer, belonged to the family that had killed the only person who'd ever truly loved her. Her phone buzzed. A text from Min-Jae. Meeting ran long. Dinner tonight? There's something I need to tell you. Something to tell her. Did he know? Had he known all along? Sarah joined her on the sidewalk. I know this is a lot. But Hana, you need to be smart about this. Whatever relationship you have with Min-Jae, remember who his family is. Remember what they're capable of. What am I supposed to do? I'm legally bound to him for a year. I signed contracts. If I break them, then you break them. You're more important than any contract. Sarah gripped her shoulders. Your mother would want you safe, not trapped by the people who killed her. Promise me you'll be careful. Promise me you'll protect yourself first. Hana promised, but the words felt hollow. Because the truth was, she didn't know how to protect herself anymore. She'd traded one prison for another, dressed this one up in luxury, and called it salvation. She didn't go back to the penthouse right away. Instead, she walked through Seoul's streets, letting the unfamiliar city swallow her up. Her phone rang 7 times. Min-Jae, probably wondering where she was. She let it go to voicemail. Finally, as the sun set and the city lights began to glow, she returned. Found Min-Jae pacing in the living room, his careful composure cracked around the edges. Where were you? Not angry. Worried. I've been calling for hours. With my aunt. Catching up on family history. Hana kept her voice neutral, watching his face for any sign of guilt. Your aunt told you something. I can see it in your eyes. He moved closer. Hana, talk to me. Whatever it is. Did your family kill my mother? The question hung between them like broken glass. Min-Jae went very still, his face draining of color. What? My mother. She was killed 15 years ago. Hit and run. She'd been investigating financial irregularities for one of her clients. That client was laundering money for Kong Industries. Hana's voice was remarkably steady considering her world was crumbling. So I'm asking you directly. Did your family kill my mother? I don't know. The words came out hoarse. I was 16 when my mother died. I didn't know anything about the company's operations. But I know my grandfather and father were capable of terrible things. I know people who became problems tended to disappear or have accidents. And you didn't think to mention this? When you learned my last name, when you did whatever background check you obviously did before proposing this arrangement, I didn't know about your mother specifically. I knew there were rumors about the company cleaning up loose ends in the early 2000s, but I didn't connect it to you. He ran his hands through his hair. Hana, I swear I didn't know. But you suspected something. That's why you asked about my family at that first meeting. You were checking to see if I was a liability. I was being cautious. That's not the same as knowing. It's close enough. Hana grabbed her jacket. I need to leave. I need to think. Don't. He caught her arm, gentle but firm. Don't run. Not like this. Let me explain. Let me investigate what actually happened. Your family killed my mother and you want me to let you investigate? Are you insane? I want to give you the truth. Real truth, not speculation from an aunt who admits she doesn't have all the facts. She has more facts than you've given me. Hana pulled away. Our contract says I have to stay married to you for a year. It doesn't say I have to live with you. It doesn't say I have to pretend this is anything other than what it is. A business arrangement that I was stupid enough to think might become something more. Hana, don't. Just don't. She headed for the door. I'll fulfill the contract. I'll show up when required, Play the role when necessary. But that's all you get from me now. The performance. Nothing real. She was out the door before he could respond, taking nothing but her phone and wallet. She'd figure out where to go, what to do. She'd survived worse than this. Hadn't she? Ji-won found her 2 hours later in a hotel bar, nursing a drink she hadn't touched. The assistant sat down without asking, ordering water and assessing Hana with sharp eyes. Mr. Kong called me. Told me to find you and make sure you were safe. Ji-won's voice was professional but not unkind. He also told me why you left. About your mother. Did he tell you his family might have killed her? He told me he was investigating that possibility. That he called in favors with people outside the company, people he trusts to give him honest answers. Ji-won paused. For what it's worth, I've worked for Mr. Kang for 5 years. He's ruthless in business, cold to most people, but he's not a liar. If he says he didn't know about your mother, I believe him. That doesn't change what his family did. No, it doesn't. But it does mean you're married to possibly the only member of that family who might actually help you get justice for what happened. Ji-won leaned forward. You can run. Break the contract, pay the penalties, start over somewhere else. Or you can stay and use your position as Mrs. Kang to find out the truth. To make them pay. That sounds like revenge. Sometimes revenge and justice are the same thing. Ji-won stood. There's a car outside. It can take you wherever you want to go. Back to the penthouse, to a hotel, to the airport. Your choice. But make it knowing all your options. She left Hana alone with a decision that felt impossible. Hana thought about her mother. About the woman who'd braided her hair on Sunday mornings and taught her that caring for yourself was an act of resistance. About the person who died because she tried to do the right thing, expose corruption, protect people who couldn't protect themselves. What would her mother want her to do? Run? Or fight? The answer came with painful clarity. Hana paid for her untouched drink and walked outside to the waiting car. Take me to the Kang Industries building, she told the driver. Corporate headquarters. And tell Mr. Kong I'm coming to finish our conversation. If you want to see Hana get the justice she deserves, make sure you're subscribed and that bell is turned on. Because what's coming next is going to be intense. Drop a comment telling me whose side you're on, Min-Jae's or Hana's. Let's talk about it. Min-Jae was alone in his office when Hana arrived, surrounded by file boxes and old documents. He looked up, relief flooding his face before he schooled it back to neutrality. You came back. I came to talk. That's all. Hana stayed by the door, maintaining distance. What did you find? He gestured to the files spread across his desk. Financial records from 15 years ago. Client lists. Correspondence between my grandfather and various executives. It's all coded, all carefully vague, but when you know what you're looking for. He pulled out a document. Your mother's name appears in 3 different memos marked urgent and liability. The dates match up with when she died. Hana forced herself to approach, to look at the evidence of her mother's murder typed out in corporate language. Problem to be handled. Situation requiring immediate resolution. Exposure risk to be eliminated. My grandfather ordered it. Min-Jae's voice was hollow. He didn't pull the trigger himself, probably hired someone through several layers of contractors so it couldn't be traced back. But the order came from him. And your father? Knew about it. Maybe didn't order it directly, but knew and approved. They were partners in everything back then. He looked up at her. Hana, I'm so sorry. If I could undo what they did, if I could bring her back. But you can't. The words came out flat. No one can. She's gone because your family valued money more than human life. And I married into that family. I'm legally tied to the people who killed my mother. So, what do you want to do? He asked it simply, laying the choice at her feet. We can go public with this. Expose what happened, burn the company down, let the legal system handle it. Or we can play the long game. Use your position as my wife to gather more evidence, build an airtight case. Either way, I'll support you. Why? Why would you help destroy your own family? Because they're not my family. Not in any way that matters. He stood, moving around the desk, but keeping distance between them. My real family died when I was 16. These people are strangers who share my blood but not my values. If they killed your mother, if they've killed others, they deserve to face consequences. Even if it means losing everything? Your company, your inheritance, your position. I've learned something this past month with you. His eyes held hers. Some things are more valuable than power. Justice. Truth. The ability to look at yourself in the mirror and not hate what you see. Your mother died trying to expose corruption. The least I can do is help finish what she started. Hana wanted to believe him. Wanted to trust that this wasn't manipulation, that his offer wasn't just another corporate strategy. But trust felt like a luxury she couldn't afford. I need guarantees, she said finally. Legal protections that go beyond our contract. If we're going to take down your family, I need to know you won't sacrifice me if things get complicated. Done. I'll have Patricia draw up additional documents. Your protection will be ironclad. And I want access to everything. All the files, all the evidence. No more secrets between us. Agreed. One more thing. Hana took a breath. We maintain the emotional boundaries. This doesn't change our arrangement. We're still strangers playing roles, just with a different endgame now. Something flickered in Min-Jae's expression. Pain, maybe. But he nodded. If that's what you need. It is. Liar, a voice whispered in Hana's head. You're lying to both of you. They worked through the night, piecing together 15 years of corporate malfeasance. The money laundering was just the beginning. Kong Industries had been involved in bribery, price fixing, worker exploitation, environmental violations. An empire built on suffering, maintained through violence. And somewhere in those files, Hana found her mother's client list. The small business owner who'd been unknowingly laundering Kang money. A Korean restaurant that had since closed. The owner had died in a fire 3 years after Hana's mother. Insurance ruled it accidental. How many people? Hana asked quietly. How many died to keep this buried? Too many. Min-Jae's jaw was tight. My grandfather built this empire by treating people as disposable. Anyone who threatened exposure was eliminated. He called it protecting the family legacy. I call it murder. And your cousin? Dae-young? Does he know about all this? Probably. His father was involved in the operations during that era. That's part of why they're pushing so hard for control. If the company stays in my hands, there's a chance I'll dig into the past. But if they take over, they can bury it deeper. So we're not just fighting for justice. We're fighting to keep murderers from gaining more power. Yes, the weight of it settled over Hana like a shroud. This wasn't just about her mother anymore. It was about every person the Kang family had destroyed in their climb to power. Every small business owner, every whistleblower, every person who'd stood in their way. We need more than documents, she said. We need testimony. People who worked in the company back then who might be willing to talk. I have a list. Former employees who left under suspicious circumstances. If we can find them, convince them to come forward. They won't. Why would they? They've spent 15 years staying silent to stay alive. We're asking them to risk everything. Then we make it worth the risk. Min-Jae pulled up a document on his computer. I've been moving money quietly for months. Offshore accounts, investments my family doesn't know about. I have enough liquid capital to protect witnesses, relocate them if necessary, set them up with new lives far from the Kang family's reach. You've been planning this for months? Since before we met? I've been planning to break free of this family since I was old enough to understand what they were. You just gave me a reason to accelerate the timeline. He met her eyes. And a reason to care about the casualties beyond just abstract justice. Something in his voice made Hana's chest tighten. They were supposed to be strangers. Partners in a business arrangement. But somewhere along the way, the lines had blurred so completely she couldn't find them anymore. Min-Jae. His phone rang, shattering the moment. He answered in clipped Korean, his expression darkening with each word. What is it? Hana asked when he hung up. My grandfather. He's requesting a family dinner tomorrow night. Wants to meet you properly, discuss the future of the company now that I've fulfilled the marriage requirement. His eyes were cold. He's planning something. He doesn't do casual family dinners. Then we don't go. We have to. If we refuse, he'll know something's wrong. Right now, he thinks I'm just another dutiful grandson following the rules. We need to maintain that illusion while we build our case. I have to sit across a dinner table from the man who ordered my mother's death and pretend I don't know. Pretend I'm grateful to be part of this family. Yes. Min-Jae's voice was gentle but firm. I know what I'm asking. I know it's almost impossible. But if we tip our hand too early, he'll destroy the evidence. He's had 15 years to perfect his cover-up. We need everything airtight before we move. Hana closed her eyes, imagining her mother's face. Remembered her laugh, her warmth, the way she'd made even ordinary moments feel magical. What would she want? For Hana to rage and burn and achieve nothing? Or to be strategic, patient, and actually win? Fine. I'll go to the dinner. I'll play the perfect granddaughter-in-law. She opened her eyes. But the second we have what we need, I'm burning that entire family to the ground. I'll hand you the matches. The dinner was held at the family compound, a traditional Korean meal served on low tables in a formal dining room that had witnessed generations of Kang family decisions. Hana wore a hanbok Jiwon had selected, traditional dress that made her feel like she was wearing a costume. Which, in a way, she was. Grandfather Kang presided at the head of the table. Min-Jae's father sat to his right, a weak man who'd let his father rule long past retirement age. Dae-young and his father were there, along with several other relatives Hana didn't know. And at the table's far end, almost invisible, sat a woman Hana hadn't met. Older, elegant, watching everything with sharp eyes. That's my stepmother, Min-Jae murmured. Be careful around her. She's smarter than she lets on. The meal proceeded with agonizing slowness. Multiple courses, each requiring specific etiquette Hana had barely mastered. Conversation in Korean that she could only partially follow, though Jiwon had warned her not to reveal how much she understood. Let them think she was lost in the language. People revealed more when they thought they weren't being understood. So, Grandfather Kang addressed Hana in English. You've been married to my grandson for a month now. Tell me, are you adjusting to our family? I'm learning, Hana replied carefully. It's a significant change from my previous life. I imagine so. Your family background is quite humble, I understand. Your father works in insurance? Your mother. He paused deliberately. What did your mother do before she passed? The question was a trap. Hana could feel it. Financial consulting. For small businesses. She met his eyes steadily. She loved helping people manage their money, make sure they weren't being taken advantage of. Something flickered in the old man's expression. Recognition? Guilt? It was gone too quickly to identify. How admirable. My condolences on your loss. The words were correct, but empty. It must have been difficult, losing her so young. It was. Especially since her death was never properly investigated. Hit and run, they called it. But no witnesses, no evidence, no justice. Hana saw Min-Jae tense beside her, warning her silently to be careful. But she couldn't stop. Just another unsolved case in a city where powerful people rarely face consequences. Indeed, the justice system can be disappointing. Grandfather Kang sipped his tea. But that's why families like ours exist. To provide protection, resources, stability that the law cannot guarantee. Now that you're a Kang, you have that protection. No one will ever hurt you again. The threat was beautifully disguised as reassurance. You're one of us now. Protected. As long as you stay in line. That's very comforting, grandfather. Hana forced herself to smile. I feel very fortunate to have married into such a powerful family. The dinner continued. Hana played her role perfectly, the grateful girl rescued from obscurity by a billionaire's mercy. Inside, she catalogued every word, every glance, every interaction that might prove useful later. After dinner, Min-Jae's stepmother caught her alone in the hallway. You're cleverer than you pretend, the woman said in perfect English. I see the way you watch everyone, the way you listen to conversations you pretend not to understand. You're not the naive girl my stepson wants everyone to believe you are. I don't know what you mean. Of course you don't. The woman smiled. A word of advice from one outsider to another. This family destroys people who threaten their power. And right now, you're either an asset to be used or a liability to be eliminated. Make sure you stay useful. Is that a threat? It's a survival strategy. I've been married to Min-Jae's father for 20 years. Do you know how? By never becoming more trouble than I'm worth. By choosing my battles carefully. By understanding that some wars can't be won, only survived. She walked away, leaving Hana shaken. Was she an ally? A warning? Another player in a game too complex to navigate? Min-Jae found her moments later, reading her expression instantly. What happened? Your stepmother knows we're planning something. Or at least suspects. She's always suspected everyone. It's how she's survived this family. He guided her toward the entrance. Let's go. We've performed enough for one night. In the car back to the penthouse, they sat in tense silence. Finally, Hana spoke. I can't do this for much longer. Sitting across from the man who killed my mother, pretending I'm grateful to be part of his family. It's destroying me. I know. But we're close. I've tracked down 3 former employees who worked in the relevant departments 15 years ago. One agreed to meet with us next week. If we can get his testimony. If. Everything is if. Meanwhile, I'm living with the enemy, playing house with the son of murderers. I'm not my father. Min-Jae's voice was sharp. And I'm not my grandfather. I'm trying to help you get justice. Are you? Or are you trying to take down your family using my tragedy as justification? Because sometimes I can't tell the difference. The words hung between them, cruel and true. Min-Jae's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. Couldn't argue. Because Hana had identified the question neither of them wanted to answer. Were they partners in justice, or was she just a convenient weapon in his family war? They returned to the penthouse in silence. Min-Jae went to his office, closing the door. Hana stood at the window, staring out at Seoul's lights, feeling more alone than she had since her mother died. Her phone buzzed. A message from Aunt Sarah, checking in. Are you okay? No, Hana wanted to type. I'm not okay. I'm married to a man I'm starting to care about who belongs to the family that murdered my mother. I'm planning revenge that might destroy us both. I'm losing track of who I am in this performance. Instead, she typed, I'm fine. Talk soon. Because admitting weakness felt like surrender. And Hana had survived too much to surrender now. She didn't know Min-Jae was standing in his office, staring at his own reflection in the dark window, thinking the exact same thing. Okay, we're getting deep into this now. If you want to see how this impossible situation resolves, you need to stick around. Hit that subscribe button, smash the like, and drop a comment telling me what you think Hana should do. Your engagement helps us create more stories like this. Now, back to what happens next. The former employee's name was Kim Jae-sung, and he agreed to meet in a coffee shop so public that surveillance would be difficult. He was in his 60s now, worn down by years of looking over his shoulder. I knew your mother were his first words to Hana. She was kind. Thorough. She didn't deserve what happened. Tell me everything, Hana said. Jae-sung's story confirmed what they'd pieced together from documents. He'd been an accountant in Kong Industries' financial department, low-level enough to see transactions but not important enough to question them. When Hana's mother started asking questions about one of the front companies, Jae-sung had been ordered to create false documentation. I didn't know what it was for at first, he said. Just routine work, or so I thought. But then she died. And a week later, my supervisor called me into his office and told me that if I ever spoke about those transactions, my family would suffer an unfortunate accident. He described my daughter's route to school, my wife's morning jog, the places they went, the people they saw. It wasn't subtle. So you stayed silent, Min-Jae said. Not accusation. Statement. I stayed silent to keep my family alive. And I've regretted it every single day for 15 years. Jae-sung looked at Hana. If testifying now can give you justice, I'll do it. My children are grown. My wife passed away last year. I've got nothing left to lose and everything to atone for. They met with 2 more former employees over the next week. Both told similar stories. Threats, intimidation, the clear understanding that crossing the Kang family meant death. One had left Korea entirely, living in Canada under a different name. The other had stayed, but sank into alcoholism, drowning the guilt in bottles. Each testimony added another piece to the puzzle. Together, they painted a picture of systematic corruption spanning decades. Hana's mother wasn't the only casualty. There were others. Whistleblowers, investigators, journalists. Anyone who got too close to the truth. We have enough, Patricia Chen said after reviewing everything. This is prosecutable. We can take this to authorities. Korean authorities or American? Hana asked. Both. The crime spanned jurisdictions. Your mother was an American citizen killed on American soil. The corruption involves international money laundering. We can hit them from multiple directions at once. Min-Jae had been quiet during the planning sessions, his expression unreadable. Now he spoke. Once we do this, there's no going back. My family will come after us with everything they have. Legal attacks, media smears, possibly physical threats. Are you prepared for that? Are you? Hana countered. I have nothing to lose. You're giving up an empire. An empire built on blood. I don't want it anymore. Haven't wanted it for years. He looked at her directly. But I need to know you're committed. That when this gets ugly, and it will get ugly, you won't regret it. The only thing I regret is not knowing the truth sooner. They set the plan in motion. Patricia coordinated with prosecutors in both countries. Evidence was submitted under seal. Witnesses were placed in protective custody. And then they waited for the hammer to fall. It took 3 days. Grandfather Kang was arrested at his home in Seoul on charges of conspiracy to commit murder, money laundering, and racketeering. Min-Jae's father was arrested simultaneously. Dae-young and his father were brought in for questioning. The media exploded. Kang Empire Falls screamed the headlines. Photos of Grandfather Kang in handcuffs dominated every news site. Reporters camped outside the Seoul compound, the Seoul penthouse, every Kang Industries office worldwide. And through it all, Min-Jae and Hana stayed hidden in a safe location Patricia had arranged. A house outside the city, nondescript and secure. They watched the news coverage in silence, witnessing an empire crumble. My grandfather's lawyer is calling it a coup, Min-Jae said emotionlessly. Says I engineered this to take over the company. Did you? Partially. He didn't lie. I wanted him gone. I wanted the company to be something other than a criminal enterprise. But mostly. He turned to look at her. Mostly I wanted to give you justice. Because you deserved it. Because your mother deserved it. And because somewhere along the way, this stopped being a transaction and became personal. We agreed to maintain boundaries. I know what we agreed. And I failed spectacularly at it. He moved closer. I'm in love with you, Hana. I think I started falling that night at the wedding when you stood in the spotlight and refused to break. I know it wasn't part of the plan. I know it complicates everything. But I can't keep pretending I don't feel it. Hana's heart hammered against her ribs. You can't love me. Your family killed my mother. My family killed your mother. Not me. And you're not responsible for what your stepmother did to you. We're not our families, Hana. We're the people we choose to be despite them. This is the trauma talking. The intensity of the situation. Once everything settles, I'll still love you. He said it with complete certainty. Whether you love me back or not, that won't change. So you get to decide what happens next. We can complete the contract, divorce as planned, and go our separate ways. Or we can take a chance on something real. Something that started as performance, but became genuine. Hana wanted to run. To protect herself from more potential pain. To stick to the boundaries that had kept her safe. But safety was a lie. She'd never been safe, not really. Not in her father's house, not in this marriage, not anywhere. Safety was something you built yourself, with choices and courage and the willingness to risk hurt for the possibility of happiness. I don't know if I can love you, she said honestly. I don't know if I can separate you from everything your family did. I don't know if this is real or if we're both just broken people who found each other in the wreckage. Then let's find out together. He didn't touch her, giving her space to choose. No contracts. No deals. Just two people seeing if what they built on lies can become truth. Before Hana could respond, Patricia burst through the door, her face pale. We have a problem. Your grandfather posted bail. He's out. Min-Jae went rigid. That's impossible. The charges. His lawyers argued he's a flight risk, that he has no criminal record, that his age and health make him low risk. The judge agreed. He's out pending trial. Patricia's hands shook. And his first call was to a private security firm he keeps on retainer. The kind that handles problems quietly. He's coming after us, Hana said. He's coming after the witnesses first, Patricia corrected. We've moved them to secure locations, but Kim Jae-sung lives alone. We couldn't find him this morning. He's not answering his phone. The news came 2 hours later. Kim Jae-sung was dead. Another hit and run. No witnesses. No evidence. Hana stared at the report, watching history repeat itself. Another good person dead because they tried to do the right thing. Another murder disguised as an accident. He's sending a message, Min-Jae said quietly. Testify and die. Anyone who helped us is a target now. Including us. Especially us. He pulled out his phone. Patricia, we need to move the other witnesses to different locations. Overseas if possible. And higher security for... An explosion shook the house. Windows shattered. Alarms screamed. Patricia yelled something Hana couldn't hear over the ringing in her ears. Min-Jae grabbed her, pulling her down as a second explosion rocked the structure. Fire. Smoke. The smell of accelerant. Back door, he shouted. No. They ran through a house that was actively trying to kill them. Flames licked at walls. Smoke choked the air. Hana's lungs burned as they burst into the backyard, where a car was already waiting. Not Patricia's car. A black SUV with tinted windows. The back door opened. Min-Jae's stepmother sat inside, calm as if she'd been waiting for tea instead of witnessing an assassination attempt. Get in, she said. Unless you'd like to meet whoever's coming to confirm the kill. Min-Jae hesitated for only a second before pushing Hana into the SUV and following. The car peeled away as figures emerged from the tree line, too late to stop them. Why are you helping us? Min-Jae demanded. Because I'm tired of cleaning up their messes. His stepmother's voice was ice. Your grandfather has been a liability for years. This prosecution was inevitable. I'd rather it happen now under controlled circumstances than later when it takes us all down. You're protecting yourself. Of course I am. But I'm also protecting you. Despite what you think, I care about my stepson. Even if he's too stubborn to see it. She handed them both phones. These are clean. Untraceable. Use them to contact your witnesses and your lawyer. I've arranged new safe houses. My people will handle security. Why should we trust you? Because right now, I'm the only reason you're alive. She met his eyes in the rearview mirror. Your grandfather is burning everything down. He'd rather destroy the entire empire than let you have it. And he'll kill anyone who stands in his way, including his own blood. I can protect you. But only if you stop being stupidly noble and accept help. Hana found her voice. What do you get out of this? Control of the company once the dust settles. A seat at the table when new leadership is established. And the satisfaction of watching the old man finally face consequences. She smiled. Don't mistake this for altruism. I'm helping you because it serves my interests. But our interests align right now, which is rare enough to be valuable. They spent the next 3 days in a safe house that actually felt safe, protected by security that answered to Min-Jae's stepmother. The remaining witnesses were moved to locations outside Korea. Patricia worked with prosecutors to fast-track the trial. And Grandfather Kang remained free, his lawyers tying up the system in knots while he hunted his enemies. This isn't justice, Hana said on the third night. This is war. Justice often is. Min-Jae sat beside her on the couch, close but not touching. I'm sorry. I promised you closure, not more violence. You promised me truth. This is what truth looks like when you tear down empires. They sat in silence, exhaustion settling over them like weight. Finally, Hana broke. I think I might love you, she whispered. I think I've been fighting it because it felt like betrayal. Of my mother, of myself. But you're not them. You're not your family. You're just a person trying to do better than the people who raised you. And maybe that's enough. Min-Jae turned to her, and for the first time, she saw hope in his eyes. Real hope, not calculation or strategy. Maybe we're both just people trying to be better, he said. And maybe that's enough to build something real on. He kissed her then, gentle and careful, asking permission with every movement. Hana kissed back, feeling walls crumble that she'd spent years building. It wasn't smart. It wasn't safe. But it was real. And real was terrifying and beautiful in equal measure. The trial happened faster than anyone expected. Min-Jae's stepmother had influence in places Hana hadn't anticipated. Judges who owed favors. Prosecutors who wanted career-making cases. Media connections that ensured every revelation made headlines. Grandfather King fought back with his own lawyers, his own media spin, his own attempts to discredit witnesses. But the evidence was overwhelming. Financial records. Testimony from former employees. Phone records. Email trails. A decade and a half of corruption laid bare for the world to see. Hana testified, sat in a witness box and told the court about her mother. About the investigation that had gotten her killed. About 15 years of living with questions no one would answer. She didn't cry. Didn't break. Spoke with a steady voice that carried the weight of every person the Kang family had destroyed. When she finished, the courtroom was silent. Even Grandfather Kang's lawyer had no questions on cross-examination. What could he say? The truth was the truth. The verdict came back in record time. Guilty on all counts. Grandfather Kang was sentenced to 20 years. Min-Jae's father got 15. Dae-young and his father faced charges for obstruction and conspiracy. The Kang Empire fractured. Some divisions were sold off. Others were absorbed by competitors. The company that had dominated Korean business for generations became a cautionary tale about unchecked power. And Min-Jae walked away from all of it. He could have fought for control. His stepmother offered him a position, a chance to rebuild something better. But he declined. I don't want that world anymore, he told Hana. I want something different. Something that isn't built on my family's graves. They stood in the penthouse for the last time, packing the few things worth keeping. Everything else would be sold, donated, erased. What are you going to do? Hana asked. I thought I'd try being a person instead of a dynasty. Maybe invest in small businesses that actually help people. Maybe teach business ethics, which would be ironic given my family history. He looked at her. What about you? I think I'm going to finish my degree. Maybe study law. Help people who can't afford lawyers. Do what my mother tried to do. That sounds perfect. It won't be glamorous. Good. I've had enough glamour to last a lifetime. They stood surrounded by boxes, two people who'd started as strangers in a fake marriage and somehow found something real in the wreckage. So, what happens with us? Hana asked the question they'd been avoiding. The contract's fulfilled. You got your inheritance, even if you're giving it away. I got my justice. We're free to walk away. We are, Min-Jae agreed. We could end this right now. Part as friends. Move on with our separate lives. We could. But I really hope we don't. Hana smiled. Me either. He pulled her close, and she let herself be held. No performance. No contract. Just two people who'd found each other in darkness and chosen to walk toward light together. Where should we go? He asked. Anywhere. Everywhere. Somewhere we can just be Hana and Min-Jae instead of survivors of family wars. I know just the place. 6 months later, they sat in a small coffee shop in Portland, Oregon, about as far from Korean corporate dynasties as possible. Hana was enrolled at the local law school. Min-Jae had started an investment firm that focused on small businesses owned by women and minorities. They'd gotten married again, for real this time. A tiny ceremony with just Aunt Sarah and a handful of friends. No contracts. No clauses. Just vows spoken with intention and meant with their whole hearts. I got an email from your stepmother, Min-Jae said one morning over coffee. She's officially taken over what's left of Kang Industries. Reformed the board. Implementing ethics oversight. She wanted us to know. Do you regret it? Hana asked. Walking away from all that power? He looked around the modest apartment they shared, at the second-hand furniture, and the view of a regular street where regular people lived regular lives. Then he looked at her. Not even a little bit. Hana's phone buzzed. A message from one of her law professors about an internship opportunity with a nonprofit that helped domestic violence survivors navigate legal systems. The kind of work her mother would have been proud of. I have something to tell you, she said suddenly. I found out yesterday. I was going to wait for the right moment, but I don't think there's ever a perfect time for this kind of news. Min-Jae set down his coffee, his full attention on her. What is it? I'm pregnant. The words hung in the air between them. They hadn't planned this. Hadn't even discussed children. Their lives were still being rebuilt, their foundations still settling. But Min-Jae's face transformed. Wonder, joy, terror, love, all of it flashing across his features in seconds. We're having a baby? We're having a baby. Hana felt tears prick her eyes. I know this is complicated. I know we're still figuring everything out. I know your family history is dark and mine is messy, and we're probably going to screw this up in 1,000 different ways. He kissed her, cutting off the spiral of worry. When he pulled back, he was smiling that rare smile she'd learned to treasure. We're going to be better than them, he said with absolute certainty. Better than my family. Better than your stepmother. We're going to raise this child with love and honesty and the knowledge that they're wanted. Not as an heir or a pawn or a burden. Just as a person we love. You make it sound easy. It won't be easy. But it'll be real. And real is all we need. Hana leaned into him, feeling the steady beat of his heart. She thought about her mother, about how proud she would have been. How she would have loved Min-Jae once she got past being terrified that her daughter had married into the family that killed her. How she would have spoiled this grandchild rotten. I wish she could meet you, Hana said softly. My mom. I wish she could know that I'm okay. That I found someone who sees me as more than a problem to solve. I think she knows. Min-Jae pressed a kiss to her hair. I think she's been watching over you this whole time. How else do you explain surviving everything you've survived? That's her strength in you. Maybe he was right. Maybe her mother's love had been the armor Hana carried all along, protecting her through Linda's cruelty, through the violation of that night, through the humiliation at the wedding. Maybe love was stronger than any contract, any empire, any amount of money. A year later, they stood in a hospital room holding a daughter they named Sarah Grace. Grace for second chances. Sarah for the aunt who'd helped Hana find the truth. Aunt Sarah was the first visitor, crying happy tears as she held her great niece. Your mama would have been so proud, she told Hana. So incredibly proud of the woman you've become. Min-Jae's stepmother sent flowers and a card that read simply, congratulations. May she have her mother's courage and her father's strategic mind. The world won't know what hit it. They didn't hear from the rest of the Kong family. Grandfather Kong died in prison 6 months into his sentence. Min-Jae didn't attend the funeral. Neither did his stepmother. Some legacies deserve to end. Linda tried to reach out once, a letter that somehow found them despite their careful privacy. Hana read it once, saw the manipulation dressed up as maternal concern, and threw it away without responding. Some doors needed to stay closed. Vanessa's marriage to Dae-young had crumbled under the weight of the scandal. Last Hana heard, Vanessa was living with her mother, working a retail job, diminished in all the ways she'd once tried to diminish Hana. There was no satisfaction in it. Just sadness for everyone involved in that toxic cycle. But Hana's father had surprised her. He'd reached out 6 months ago with a letter of his own. A real apology, not the half-hearted attempts he'd made when Linda was still controlling him. He divorced Linda, was in therapy, trying to understand why he'd let his second wife destroy his relationship with his daughter. I don't expect forgiveness, he'd written. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know I see clearly now what I was too weak to see then. You were never the problem. I was. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Hana had met him for coffee. Once. It was awkward and painful and honest. They weren't going to have a fairy tale reconciliation. Too much damage had been done. But maybe, slowly, they could build something small and real from the ruins. He'd asked to meet his granddaughter. Hana said maybe someday. When she was ready. When she was sure he wouldn't bring his toxicity into her daughter's life. He'd accepted that without argument, which was its own kind of progress. Now, standing in their small house in Portland, watching Min-Jae rock their daughter to sleep while humming off-key lullabies, Hana felt something she'd never expected to feel. Peace. Not the absence of problems. They had plenty of those. Student loans and sleep deprivation and the normal struggles of new parents figuring out how to keep a tiny human alive. But peace in knowing that they'd chosen each other every single day. Peace in building something good from the ashes of their family's failures. Peace in watching their daughter grow up knowing she was loved unconditionally, Not for what she could provide, but simply for existing. What are you thinking about? Min-Jae asked softly, noticing her watching them. Happy endings, Hana said. I never believed in them before. They always seemed like fairy tales people told themselves to avoid facing reality. And now? Now I think happy endings are just new beginnings. They're not perfect or permanent. They're choices you make every day to keep building something worth having. Very philosophical for 3 in the morning. But he was smiling. Blame the sleepless nights. He came to her, their daughter sleeping against his chest. I love you, Hana Kong. I loved you when we were strangers playing roles. I loved you when we were partners seeking justice. And I love you now, covered in spit up and exhausted and more beautiful than any person has a right to be. I love you too. Even when you're being impossibly romantic at ungodly hours. They stood together in the quiet house, their daughter's soft breathing the only sound. Outside, the world kept turning. Somewhere, other people were fighting their own battles against families that didn't see them. Other survivors were choosing between safety and freedom, between what they knew and what they deserved. Hana hoped they found their way. Hoped they discovered that sometimes the strangest paths led to the most genuine destinations. Hoped they learned, as she had, that you weren't defined by where you came from but by who you chose to become. The woman who'd had her hair cut in cruelty had found her power not in revenge, but in refusing to let that cruelty define her. The man who'd been raised in ice had learned that warmth wasn't weakness. And together, they'd built something neither of them could have created alone. That was the real story. Not the dramatic rescue at the wedding or the takedown of a corrupt empire. Those were just chapters. The real story was 2 broken people who dared to trust that broken didn't mean beyond repair. That contracts could become commitment. That performance could evolve into truth. And that sometimes, just sometimes, the person who disrupted your carefully planned disaster was exactly the person you needed all along. Sarah Grace stirred in her father's arms, making the small sounds babies make when they're dreaming. What dreams did she have? What world would she grow up in? What battles would she face? Hana didn't know. But she knew this. Her daughter would grow up knowing she was loved. Knowing she had parents who chose truth over comfort, justice over ease, love over fear. And maybe that would be armor enough for whatever came next. Come on, Min-Jae said, heading toward the bedroom. Let's get her back to sleep before she realizes it's almost feeding time. We should probably sleep too. Probably. But I'm too happy to sleep. That's the sleep deprivation talking. Maybe. Or maybe it's just gratitude that I walked into that wedding and found the one person who could make me believe in something other than strategy and survival. Hana followed him into the bedroom, into the life they'd built, into the family they'd chosen. Behind them was a story of humiliation and rescue, of justice sought and won, of empires falling and new beginnings rising from the rubble. Ahead was everything else. The ordinary and the extraordinary, the challenges and the joys, the moments that would define them not as victims or survivors, but simply as people who loved each other and the life they were creating together. And somewhere in heaven or memory or wherever lost loved ones went, Hana's mother smiled. Her daughter had found her way, had found her voice, had found love in the most unlikely place and turned a moment of cruelty into a story of redemption. The end wasn't really an ending at all. It was just the beginning of everything that came after the cameras stopped rolling and the headlines faded and 2 people who'd started as strangers decided to spend their lives learning to be family. That was enough. More than enough. It was everything. If this story moved you, if you stayed until the very end, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and drop a comment sharing your thoughts. Have you ever had to choose between revenge and peace? Between justice and moving forward? I want to hear your stories. And if you know someone who needs to hear this message, that broken doesn't mean beyond repair, that new beginnings are possible even after the worst betrayals, share this video with them. Sometimes the stories we need most are the ones that remind us we're not alone in our struggles. That other people have walked through fire and come out the other side. That happy endings aren't fairy tales. They're choices we make every single day to keep building something worth having. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to Hana's story. And remember, you are not defined by the cruelty others show you. You are defined by how you choose to respond, what you choose to build, and who you choose to become despite it all. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.